Good day to everybody. Thought of giving an update about the Canadian migration opportunities through Zenith Immigration Lawyers in Sri Lanka and Zenith Immigration Inc. Canada. We at Zenith Immigration select our own clients based on the recent and past patterns and selection thresholds, and also the latest information available, and also based on our educated guesses to maximize the number of applicants getting the Canadian permanent resident visa once they have applied. Okay, now first of all, let me tell you something, and you don't have to obtain the services of a third party like us. If you are capable of doing that, you can submit your own application, and also you can find information about all the Canadian programs, Canadian visa programs in the Canadian government website www.canada.ca. Now, if you wish to obtain the services of Zenith Immigration, we actually once a month basically conduct a webinar. That's an online one, whether I am in Canada like this or in Sri Lanka, that you can join from wherever you are in the world. And before that, actually what you have to do is send your email address to 0777 009200. So within 3 business days, my staff will send you some basic information. You have to go through all of them and confirm to us whether you can meet the requirements mentioned in one of the programs given in that email, or whether you can meet them in the foreseeable future. Now, basically the maximum possible chance for the applicants applied through us actually was for those who were below 30 with a master's degree and IELTS at least 8 for listening and 7 each in the general test, and work experience 3 years in any skill occupation, whether it is admin assistant or bookkeeper or top manager. It did not make a difference to them. Actually same number of points were given to each applicant for the work experience, as long as they have had 3 years of work experience within the last 10 years. Now that was in the past. So anybody who came to us with meeting those requirements, actually they have already obtained the visa, almost all. Now, but with the COVID wreaking havoc across the world, actually it had an impact on the Canadian migration programs as well. And in 2020 December, Immigration Canada suspended the selections for about 1.5 years. However, the good news is in July this year, 2022, Immigration Canada resumed the selection draws, and initially upon resumption the selection threshold was very high. However, now we see a decrease gradually, and we are expecting it to come down to 470s, CRS score 470s. In order for anybody to get selected directly, through that selection, those selection draws, that applicant has to meet the requirements I just mentioned. However, those about 30, about 29 years, with you reaching 30, you are losing about 5 points. Then again, for each year up to the age 40, you are losing another 5 or 6 points each per year. Now, there is no age limit in this program. However, age is going to have an impact because the points are decreased based on the age. Now, those who are above 29, can't they migrate to Canada? No, I wouldn't say that. There are actually other ways that you can compensate for the age factor, that you are losing some points for the age factor when you go above 29. However, there are other possibilities actually for those as well. However, those possibilities, some are not very certain, while there is one almost 100% certain path for those who are above 29 is having French language proficiency up to level 7 and prove that through the TEF Canada or TCF Canada exam. This is actually, this knowledge level is basically equivalent to about 6 each in IELTS knowledge level. Then even if you are 40, then your chances are almost 100%. If you, with that level 7 French, if you can get a master's degree, which actually you can, if you don't have a master's degree, most of the people can get a master's degree within about 1 year, studying sometimes online, sometimes like part-time, about 5 or 8 hours a week on a weekend. Then also IELTS at least 8 for listening and 7 each in the other 3 bands in the general IELTS test. So if you have those, if you meet those requirements, then even if you are 40, sometimes even up to 44, because there are some provincial programs also. Now we have seen a trend in, especially in the Saskatchewan province. We recently got for some of our clients, even if they were 34, 30, about 35, they got the invitations to apply to province of Saskatchewan. Then that kind of opportunities may come your way. The problem is, with the provincial nominations, you cannot predict it always, because provinces may change their demand occupation list. Unlike in the federal program, there are demand occupation lists from time to time for provinces. Zenith Immigration is working with Saskatchewan, with another Saskatchewan consultant providing services for that part. And Ontario province, OINP program, and Alberta province, if you, when you submit an express entry profile, we don't have to do anything because Alberta and Ontario, they have direct access to the pool. Alberta is actually picking and choosing people based on their labor market needs. Ontario has a range, like they give a range, like from this number of points to this number of points. If your score is within those numbers, then you get selected. So in that email I mentioned, we are sending all these details, demand occupations. For Alberta, actually there is an ineligible occupation list. So for Saskatchewan as well, excluded occupation list. Likewise, so there are so many things, so many factors in this. Therefore, if you want to, get this opportunity, you have to actually, without looking for guarantees, you have to be on the hunt always, and you have to, try to improve and maneuver with us, because sometimes from time to time we, based on the changes to the program, sometimes very minor changes could give you a very big chance, and you need only one opportunity to get the ITA. ITA is invitation to apply for Canadian permanent resident visa. So you have to be on the hunt, as I said. So you cannot look for guarantees. Those who have done that, most of them have got this opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity to come to Canada. So you come as a permanent resident to Canada. After 3 years of residence in Canada, within 5 years, you can go in and out of Canada any number of times within those 5 years. As long as you have lived in Canada for 3 years, you can actually get the Canadian citizenship. And once you have got the citizenship, you can even stay out of Canada any number of years and return to Canada. Even for your children, they can, even if you don't come, they can come back to Canada. And as a permanent resident also, when you get the visa, you have to land within a certain deadline, and then even you can, if you have commitments back in Sri Lanka or any other country, you can go back and stay outside Canada for 3 years without losing the permanent resident visa. Just you land in Canada, even the very next day you can leave Canada, and however you have to return to maintain that permanent resident visa. Even beyond 3 years you may stay if you have a very compelling reason, actually some sort of humanitarian and compassionate ground, like family member serious sickness or something like that. So once you are a citizen, actually you can even get the dual citizenship with Sri Lankan passport as well as the Canadian passport. And as a permanent resident, you enjoy all the rights and privileges of a Canadian citizen, except voting rights, and also some high security jobs you cannot get as a permanent resident. However, all the other benefits, all the social security benefits, universal health care, everything you can get. And actually, once you are a permanent resident, your children, they can the study as local students, and even study grants and even student loans granted by Canadian government. The children can pay it little by little when they get a proper job, so that they can afford to pay back only a little amount, maybe about $100 per month, something like that. And even there are other ways like registered education funds that you can build up with the government also contributing. And there are so many ways, like for example, I have one international student, say that girl is studying in a very reputed university in Canada, and she's paying per year about $65,000 per year for 4-year actually program. She's paying $65,000 into 4, that is about $260,000. It comes to about, I think, 75 million. But if her parents were permanent residents or a citizen of Canada, that cost would have been pretty much less. That is maybe about say 7,000 or 8,000 into 4 years, about $32,000. That is about say about 9 million. However, that is for higher education after school. School education is totally free in Canada, but the university and colleges are not free. But as I said, for permanent residents and citizens, there are various ways. They can get assistance for studies in Canada through grants and loans and things like that. And also, once you are a permanent resident, when you migrate to Canada as a permanent resident, if you have children, a child gets about more than everything together, federal benefits and provincial benefits and other tax credits, about 1,000 or even more than that, $1,200 per child, most of the time, per month, especially within the first year. But when you earn more money, that amount could decrease. But especially within the first year, because your income is assessed, based on your past income. So in Sri Lanka, income in Canadian terms is very much low because of that. Especially within the first year, for children, they get that benefit. Even the main applicant and the spouse, even if they work and if there are taxes paid, most of the time those taxes are paid back as tax refunds. So it could amount to about $4,000-5,000. So whatever you are spending, and you can easily earn and save. Whatever you are spending on IELTS, or even if you are getting our services for that kind of fees and Canadian government application processing fees, all these things, it costs. And unfortunately, for Sri Lankans, it has been aggravated. The problem has been aggravated by the rupee depreciation. However, once you are here, it works in your favor, because you get more value for the dollar. And also, as I mentioned, for children, for other benefits, and also the jobs, we have those who have come under express entry through our organization, they all are doing very well. So bankers, they are working in banks as managers. Most of the time they get like one level low, but they can work their way up. And all the professionals, they are working in their own fields. Now, so many examples, I can say that they can't even believe that the opportunities they get. So they are buying houses. Once you are working, you can, with a minimal down payment, the banks give mortgage. Banks will that mortgage facilities. So whatever you pay as a rent plus some other amount is paid towards the mortgage. So likewise, the people are getting settled in Canada with a future security and actually sense of safety, and especially for the children's future security and their well-being, and also the healthcare. So that's pretty much about that for the update. And if you wish to obtain more information about your eligibility, please don't call, please, because there are so many thousands of people calling us. We cannot take your call, unfortunately. We don't take your calls, but if you can send your email address by text, by SMS, to 07777009200, within 3 business days, we will get back to you with details. You have to do your homework by going through them, right? After that, once you have confirmed that you can meet the requirements, so you meet the requirements at the moment, then you can come for a webinar for a very small fee. Then in that webinar, I talk to you, I give all the information, and then you are given the opportunity to even ask questions and be very clear before you proceed further. And if you wish to get French knowledge, as I mentioned, you need for some, in order to make it very certain, like almost 100% certain, if you can learn French committedly, and you can make it almost 100% certain. And we at Zenith Immigration, we are conducting an online course that's 1.5 hours 2 days a week in the evening, like after 7 p.m. And also, however, you have to do quite a lot of self studies. So that just because though you attended those online classes does not mean your level 7 French knowledge is guaranteed. You have to pass the test just like you are passing the IELTS exam. So for our clients we are providing this service because we know the value of French for some clients. And also another thing, in the new year next year 2023 there could be for some people even without masters, sometimes even without IELTS 8 for listening and 7 each in the other 3 bands, there could be possibilities through a demand occupation draw that is going to be introduced by the Canadian government in 2023 according to their publications and also the minister's statements. Then even if you are sometimes above 40, if you have worked in a demand occupation within a certain period of time, most of the time it could be within the last 10 years, at least 1 year that you have worked in a demand occupation, or maybe sometimes within the last 5 years. It all depends on the criteria they are going to bring into that new selection draw. And also there's a likelihood that there will be a new selection draw for those who are proficient in French knowledge. So if you have level 7 French knowledge, then even without a master probably you could be eligible in these new draws in 2023 are likely to be introduced according to the information we get. So but the shape of those selection draws, the criteria I cannot tell you right now. You can follow our YouTube channel as well as the Facebook to get more updates on this. So I hope you got some basic information about the migration opportunities at the moment. Today is 23rd of September 2022. So these details could change, but for most part of the last 7 years, this express entry selection criteria for the federal program has not changed much. Most of the time it has changed for the better. I mean, it has become flexible, but on the other hand, because the demand is higher, the selection threshold we have seen going up. So there are so many ifs and buts, so many factors affecting these things. So therefore we cannot give a guarantee. So you have to take a risk and go for this once in a lifetime opportunity, and I wish you all the best.